Welcome, everyone, to this time of reflection, of our committing to God, one whose unique and irreplaceable life meant a lot to so many. What we're going to do in this hour together is take our honest grief, our leaning into the landscape of God's presence. That was so the landscape that LuAnn walked in. A great drama, the rich resources of Christian faith, and we're going to let it interact with our sorrow, with our questions. Maybe we'll discover or rediscover it. It really was the landscape LuAnn walked in. So whatever connections to LuAnn have brought you here tonight, for those gathering online, whatever you're bringing in your heart and your mind of your own life's journey to this memorial service, please know that it is welcome, and you are welcome. Ook lieve familie in Nederland, een warm welkom tot deze dienst, waar wij LuAnn herdenken. We wensen jullie alleen een gezegende dienst. And to you, Albert and Peter and Edward, Alicia, yes, and you, Everhard, Stefan, and the beloved sisters, great nieces, great nephew, brothers-in-law, welcome. With all that you are bringing here today, may this hour be for your healing. What better way for us to start than to sing a psalm together? Psalm 84, very expressive of the kinds of experience with God that LuAnn lived with. And Lori, who is LuAnn's sister, if you didn't know by just looking at her, I'm telling you now that that is the case. And so, Lori, we're so glad that you are here to accompany us. want to know Christ. Let me say it again. Yes, to know the power of his resurrection and participation in his sufferings, becoming like in him in his death, and so somehow attaining to the resurrection from the dead. Not that I have already obtained all this or have already arrived at my goal, but I press on to take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me. These brief verses from Philippians chapter 3, LuAnn called them her mission statement. Ever since memorizing them, and truly we mean taking them from the head into the heart, learning them by heart, almost 20 years ago when she was first diagnosed with cancer. We sat in her bedroom where she was often in the last months, but in her wry way, with a bit of a distinctive chuckle, she said to me, "Quite the text I've given you, Wilma, to think about and to preach on at my funeral." So I can only say that my thoughts here about this passage are so much a shared enterprise, because yes, what a text. The Apostle Paul, probably most of you know when you heard those words that he has come a bit on hard times. But LuAnn wouldn't really have any of it. For her, he wasn't like a dogmatic theologian to argue with about hot-button issues. He was, in part because of these words that we've just read, but he was her heart's companion, really, on a journey of a kind of fierce, energetic spirituality, this way of walking through life that LuAnn shared with him, with Paul, that was open to mystery, to ambiguity, even to losing control, having to give over, pressing on to know more about what God was revealing of God's self in Jesus. I want to know Christ. Yes, he says it twice, to know. There's a lot to suggest that Paul was a smart guy, well-trained, but it's not that kind of smart knowing that he's talking about. It's not the kind of knowing that keeps pretty much all of us Googling for information. He means the kind of knowing that can only come through experience, especially the almost crashing experience of meeting the creator of time in time. For him, of course, that was the famous road to Damascus experience. It leaves Paul spun around with really nothing left to do except, as he says here, to press on and take hold of more and more of that for which Christ took hold of me. And what is the content of that knowing? He says two things: the power of Jesus' resurrection and fellowship in his sufferings. That the Easter Good Friday pattern is something that LuAnn noticed and found it striking and beautiful. That it begins with Easter, and that's how you understand Good Friday. Everything hinges on Jesus' resurrection for Paul. It's just the place, the only place where he can look back on the whole life of Jesus and his own life, Paul, and find it, all of it, to be not the place of absence from God, but the site of God's presence. The power of his resurrection and participation in his sufferings. And that's what it was like for LuAnn, especially in that first crashing experience of diagnosis and chemo, when she felt, she described it as almost like a kind of despair at how little control we all actually have over our lives, and she of hers. But here's the thing. It happened in Lent, this first diagnosis and first chemo. And wow, she grabbed hold of that season with its big, deep themes of trusting God inside the vulnerability of our human life. And she felt incredibly that she was learning what the text says, knowing from the inside what it was to participate in or have fellowship with Jesus in his sufferings. These are her words now. Fellowship in Jesus' suffering became very real, and I realized that I could live as he did, trusting God, even with suffering, and even in the face of death, I could keep living. And she also describes that, like it was for Paul, it was never so dramatic again, but everything changed. Her words again. A kind of quiet submission happened at every level of my life, mental, physical, and spiritual. I want to know Christ, yes, to know the power, the dynamite actually is the word in Greek, of his resurrection and participation in his sufferings. And so, somehow, to attain to the resurrection of the dead. Somehow, the resurrection. You know, Paul was really bold whenever he talked about Jesus' resurrection. If only for this life we trust Christ, we are of all people most to be pitied. But now Christ has risen. So why, with all that boldness, is he using this tentative word? Somehow, the resurrection. Here's LuAnn's answer. She said, I love it. Somehow is such a great word. You can't finally get the resurrection from the dead, not Jesus nor yours. I am more than okay with not knowing the specifics about what my new life will be like. But I am absolutely banking on it. I've experienced it already. Somehow, the resurrection. We aren't the first to wonder about the resurrection of a dead person, and our modern minds might be, especially skeptical about Jesus' resurrection, let alone ours. Astonishing things don't really happen, do they? Because it is astonishing. So that tentative boldness of the word somehow, the resurrection, gets it just right. It's what the Bible calls having the mind of Christ. To look right in at all the darkness, all the temptations, all the violence, all the suffering, and even death, and see surrounding it all, within it, underneath it all, the seeds of new life. So keep going, I think, is what she is preaching through me today. Press on to take hold of that for which somehow Christ has taken hold of this whole world, of the whole cosmos. Richard Rohr calls this the Christ mystery. Christ as divine presence everywhere and in everything since the beginning of time and before. Christ as the name for the immense spaciousness of all love. Christ as the name for love at its fullest now and at the moment of our dying and beyond. Somehow. Interaction with LuAnn, which we will hear about soon from those closest to her, meant observing, I think you will agree, an almost fierce liveliness, life enjoyment. She told me once that she was called Fierce Pierce in her teen years. That was her maiden name. Apparently for how she played sports. Fierce Pierce. And those were character traits uniquely hers. It's one of the reasons we're sad. There is only one Loretta Ann Pierce Westerhuis. But especially in these last reflective years and months, she was so ready to name this deep, somehow kind of knowing as the source of really all that made her and all that makes any of us, the courage, the liveliness, the joy, the peace. LuAnn passed from this life at the end of Lent on Easter weekend. the day of great silence between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. The day that you wrote so beautifully about, Albert, in speaking of her passing. The day, these are Albert's words, of not knowing, of waiting without assurance, of holding on to what cannot yet be named. She died into that rich silence, without avoidance, with her hands open, trusting what she could not yet see. Somehow, the resurrection. The best stories, as the storyteller Martin Shaw says, are those that are strong enough to hold everything together. Time and timelessness. Earth and heaven. Doesn't that make The Empty Tomb just the best of all best stories? A kind of rising sun dispelling shadows in multiple directions all at once, and for which the word somehow is somehow the best word. As it has done for so many, the vulnerability of illness gave LuAnn a very tender intimacy with God. Jesus, lover of my soul, let me to thy bosom fly. Well, it's not Emily Dickinson, she said after we sang it together one day. She loved Emily Dickinson. Said, it's not Emily, but this song is very good. So shall we test it out together? Sing together best as you can, letting these great themes of spiritual acceptance, spiritual need, God as a lover of our deepest self, settle into you at the place of your greatest need. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. Amen. Albert, I don't know if you remember that. You used to say that a saint was someone who just let the light in. A regular person whose life in all of its individuality and its uniqueness becomes a place where the cosmic story of grace has room to move. And it's that unique light of LuAnn's life that we want to shine a light on now. And Wendy is going to begin by reading a poem that meant a lot to LuAnn.
So LuAnn, my aunt, selected this poem to be read today by Mary Oliver. It's a true honor to have the opportunity to share this with you. The words of the poem to me reflect so much of what I admired about LuAnn, her truly authentic and vibrant way of living. And these words will stay with me as a guidepost, shaping many decisions throughout the rest of my life. When Death Comes, by Mary Oliver. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut. When death comes like the iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does toward silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to this earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world.
I don't want to end up having just visited this world. Well, LuAnn certainly didn't. She was quite intentional, actually, about everything, about that not happening. And one thing that she loved was writing mission statements. I already mentioned that the verses from Philippians were like a spiritual mission statement for her. But she really got on board with mission statements, I guess, back in the 80s already with Stephen Covey. Her sons are nodding. Not that you were around in the 70s, but anyway, Stephen Covey suggested, some of you may know of him, he suggested that writing personal mission statements is a great way to align your life and your decisions with your core values. And the way he said it, you should begin with the end in mind. So here's a picture of the final results of an exercise that the Westerhuis family had of writing a family mission statement. And these 4 words, love, listen, laugh, and learn, I guess really did settle in because the family is going to shape their thoughts and reflections on LuAnn using this mission statement. So I'll invite, first of all, Sandy, LuAnn's sister, to come up, and then Peter and Edward and Kathy, a dear friend, will speak with no further introductions.
Good evening. I'm Sandy. I'm LuAnn's older sister. I'm the matriarch of the Pierce family. And I've lived in Arizona for the past 58 years, quite a ways away from Surrey. Before I begin speaking of my precious sister tonight, I want to thank you for all your years of supporting LuAnn's cancer treatments, her surgeries, and months of healing. Your prayers, your cards, your visits, flowers in the house and also hospitals. The food was certainly appreciated by the family. The love that you showed us from your hearts, we all know that. We know it tremendously, and thank you. Thank you very much. When beginning to visualize what I wanted to say tonight about LuAnn, one word coming back to me. Formidable. She was formidable, meaning impressive strength, skill, intelligence, powerful presence. LuAnn stood firm in her beliefs, and she didn't mask her feelings, did she? Well, was this inherent? Was it because of the environment? Maybe the love in her family life? Well, maybe it's a combination of the two. When I walked into her room at the hospice facility last month, after arriving at the airport late in the afternoon, she looked right at me and said, "I have been waiting for you since 9 o'clock this morning." I kind of laughed. I thought, well, her bluntness is really shining through. I got here as soon as I could. Speaking with LuAnn months ago, when she accepted the fact that the cancer was progressing, she spoke to me of her plans for tonight's service. She planned the service. She asked me to tell about how we were raised and what kind of family life we had back in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Our family structure was very unique. Our parents met and married in 1939 in Monongahela, Pennsylvania. Our brother Paul was born 2 years later, and I was born 18 months after that. We were a family of 4 for 12 years. And so when Paul was 14 and I was 12, LuAnn arrived. So now, LuAnn is 8, my brother Paul is married, and I'm a junior in college, and Lori was born. So our parents had children in their home, all of 2 years of their marriage. And that was the first 2 years of their marriage. When I went off to college as a freshman, LuAnn went to first grade. That seems unrememberable now, but there were so many years apart then, but now we seemed like just a couple years. We seemed very close as adults. Therefore, LuAnn grew up with mostly adults. She displayed an inherent desire to help those less fortunate at a very early age. During her year in kindergarten, our mother got a phone call from the teacher concerning LuAnn's attention to a little child in the classroom. Little Mary Ann, our neighbor, was a very shy little girl and unable to dress herself to go outdoors for recess during the cold winter months. And LuAnn took it upon herself to mother Mary Ann. The teacher thought Marianne relied on LuAnn too much, and she called to ask the request if my mother would talk to 5-year-old LuAnn and tell her not to help Marianne so much. Now, that's kind of hard to do for a little 5-year-old and for her to understand the situation. The teacher hated to ask this question because she said so many students would not even recognize another student's need for help. Also, after major surgery one time, LuAnn could not get out to buy a birthday card for me, so she wrote this long letter and sent it over email. And I'm going to read you some excerpts from this letter, because I kept it all these years. I want to take this opportunity, your 65th birthday, to express my deep love for you. Some of my earliest memories are about you. I remember sitting on the floor with you, I think in the kitchen in the Beaver Falls parsonage, and there was a magnetic board with some colored letters. I remember you sitting there with me, trying to teach me some simple words. I also remember coloring with you. Another quote later in the letter said this: "Some of my favorite memories are when you would come home from college. I was always impressed with your blonde hair, that you had a string of pearls, and nail polish that was slightly colored. I was still very much of a tomboy, so this fascinated me. Yes, then I would get to sleep with you if I cleaned up your room." Okay, so I'm going to expand on that. We lived in a 2-story house. All the bedrooms were upstairs except this one down below. Probably was a study or a den, so it had no closet. So when I came home, I had an extension on the door behind for my hang-up articles. My suitcase was on the floor, and I had a chair in the room. Most likely, I did not make the bed. Probably the chair had 2 or 3 layers of clothes for several days. There may be cups on the side table from coffee. My shoes would be all over the place, but I just kept the door shut so nobody would see. But then LuAnn would say, "Can I sleep with you tonight?" Here I am, 19, and she's 7. And I go, "Well, yeah, you want to go clean up my room first?" So then I would go and do something with my parents, have a discussion, and then 20 minutes later she'd come back and she goes, "Okay, the room's all clean." And I would go in and everything would be immaculate. The bed would be made, the clothes would be folded in my suitcase, clothes hung up on behind the door, the shoes in a row, and the cups in the kitchen sink. I look at that now and I think, that was very mean. But at the time, I really thought it was funny, okay? So that's what we did. So the next story I want to tell you is when LuAnn was in the 3rd grade. She stood up to this bully. It was recess time, and she noticed a girl on the playground crying. A tough boy from the same class was taunting Susan and having others laugh at her. Susan had a speech disorder, and she stuttered. And this boy was having his fun, making fun of her, and all the little kids around him were laughing. Well, when LuAnn saw this, she intervened, 8 years old. She pushed the tough guy away, chewed him out, and embarrassed him in front of all his friends. At the time, Susan and LuAnn hardly even knew each other. But after that day, they became good friends. In fact, they became friends for life. Talking with Susan just this last week, she told me that her life today, was a result of that intervention in 3rd grade. Together, they developed a love of sports. They played guitars together. They were in elementary grades all the way up through same school up through 8th grade. Susan's parents did not attend church, and so neither did she. When the teens in LuAnn's church decided to have a bowling league, LuAnn said, "Hey, Susan, you want to join our league?" And so she did. She met a whole new group of friends. She started coming to church. She joined the teens choir. She gave her life to Jesus. And then she chose to go to college at Eastern Nazarene College, which is our sister college in Boston. She went to Eastern Nazarene. LuAnn went to Point Loma University in San Diego. After college, Susan got her master's degree at Boston University and became a social worker in a hospital on Cape Cod. She is retired now and can't imagine her life, what it would have been if they had not had that intervention in third grade. LuAnn and I were able to visit with Susan 3 years ago this month at Cape Cod in her home. And it is a wonderful thing to think that something happened way back in third grade at 8 years old continues to this day. Since our father was a minister in the Church of the Nazarene, we were known as PKs, preacher's kids. When a church hired our dad, they hired the family. Our mother taught Sunday school, Bible studies. Both LuAnn and Lori were church pianists at one time. We never missed a Sunday, AM, PM, Wednesday night, revival weeks, you name it. We were there the first ones before the service began and the last to leave. There was often high expectations from the congregation's members for PKs to be perfect, and they frequently face scrutiny and public observation of what they wore, how they acted, if they were liabilities or assets to their father's ministry. So I have to tell you, and I'm, I guess, bragging a little bit here, that all four of us were always assets to our father's ministry. Speaking about being scrutinized about what we wore, here's another story about LuAnn. One Christmas, all LuAnn asked for was a pair of go-go boots. These were white boots characterized by their knee-high height and made of the white vinyl material. They became popular when Nancy Sinatra brought the attention to them when she released her single, "These Boots Are Meant for Walking." Well, our parents were torn. Should we or should we not buy this #1 gift for LuAnn? Fast forward to Christmas morning, and now all the presents have been opened. No boots. LuAnn said nothing. She accepted the outcome. When all the paper and ribbon were cleaned up, our dad said, "Hey, we forgot that one gift in the closet upstairs." Sure enough, it was the go-go boots. And LuAnn was one happy dancer that whole year. The love of a child's wishes outweighed what some people might have been critical of. Things we four PKs experienced while living in our parsonage. By the way, my parents never owned their own home. That was a time when ministers always lived in parsonages, especially in the Nazarene Church denomination. Well, people coming to our house needing food, and our mother going through our pantry and sharing half of what we had. We experienced couples getting married in our living room, members coming to our house for counseling. Our dining room furniture was minimal. Our dining room table was a door without a hole cut out for the knob. Our father got wrought iron legs and put it on the four corners. We put a linen tablecloth on or a lace tablecloth on, and it was beautiful. You wouldn't know it. Our dishes came free from Montgomery Wards when we bought paint to paint the parsonage. We didn't know, we thought it was great. We thought it was wonderful. We always had goblets, water goblets. The whole table was wonderful. My mother was a good cook. You didn't know when I was an adult before I realized how minimal that was. Vacations could be delayed because a church member was close to death. It's wonderful when your parents act the same at home as they do in public. And that's what we experienced. I must tell you, all four of us survived this time of our life and continued serving God, the church, and others without complaints. LuAnn spent a month with us in Phoenix when she was the summer of her 16th birthday, and she joined the local choir at our church, and they were learning a summer musical. She participated in that, and the weekend before she went back home to Pittsburgh, she sang with a group at church. On her way back on the plane, she decided, I think I can go home, buy that music, and maybe I can accompany them. I think I can develop a choir. I think we can do that musical. So she had that thought in her head. She went home, expressed it with my father. They bought the music. She talked to 5 or 6 of the teens. They got more friends. They had practice one night a week at the church. And then it developed into, behold, 15 to 20 kids. Susan, the person I was telling you about, accompanied it with her guitar. LuAnn was the accompanist on the piano. And there was another fellow who played the guitar. And they did this musical right on Labor Day weekend. Well, they didn't want to stop. They continued this singing group. They called themselves All God's Children. They would sing at the church. They sing other churches, special events, and they're even on TV on the same station where Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood started. So their favorite song was, Oh Happy Day. Oh happy day, oh happy day, when Jesus washed, when Jesus washed. Oh yes, he washed my sins away. Can you imagine 20 teenagers on your stage at your church singing that song? It energized the whole congregation. And that was because LuAnn decided to form this singing group. So these people are now late 60s, early 70s. A couple of them become ministers. There's a couple of ministers' wives. There's a teacher. There's a student council. There's a city council person, representative. They're board members. They're lifelong members of the church. And when they found out of LuAnn's passing, they have been sending messages on Facebook saying those were some of the best years of their life. So LuAnn and I had a long-distance sisters relationship as adults. Living miles apart, we relied on phone calls, visits, and trips together. I actually feel cheated that I won't have this relationship anymore. When I arrived at the Westerhuis house Wednesday, I expected almost LuAnn to greet me at the door and say, I have been waiting for you since 9 a.m. this morning. But that never happened. It's finally becoming real that she's gone to heaven. She is blessed to be without pain anymore. She is with our father, our mother, our brother Paul, and his wife Kathy. I have glorious memories of my formidable sister. Nothing will erase those memories. One of my biggest joys will be when she greets me in heaven someday and say, I have been waiting for you a long time.
Testing, okay. Listen. When I look at this box down here in front of me, and I look at the remains, how does someone say goodbye to someone like your mother? When you look at that box, that's all that's left of this woman that raised you and that loved you and that took care of you. And there's just this box left. And you know that she was so much more than that. That she meant so much more to you and to others than that. it's hard to know what to think or what to say or what to do. I had a chance last month to spend 3 weeks with my mother in the hospice, beside her every day, and it was such a gift to be able to talk with her and sit with her and feed her and hold her hand and laugh as she was in and out. But it was really a gift to have that time with her, and something I will keep with me forever. Sorry, I need to stop. So listen is what I want to talk about with my mother. My mom loved to talk. She loved to talk, she loved to listen. I would call her on the phone, "Oh, Peter. And then she would want to ask me all the questions about all my friends. What did Stefan make for dinner? Can I see a photo? Can you send me that recipe? And she would want to know about my boss and about my colleagues and how it was going. But she wasn't only asking these kinds of questions, she was also listening all the time. What's really going on behind his words? And then she would ask the second question, the uncomfortable questions, the questions that you don't want to answer, you don't want to talk about, maybe that feel painful or that make you feel sad or disappointed or something like that. She was always so interested and curious about things about me, about our family, about things that were going on in the community, and she just had a thirst for all that information and wanting to know about those things and wanting to talk about it. And even from far away, she was always listening to me. It was always clear, I am your mother. I am not your friend, I am your mother. And these clear boundaries that she would set with me and with others that opened up a kind of liberty that you were able to just express yourself because it was very clear, it was consistent with her. My mom, as a listener, was also a professional. She was a guide. She was a counselor. And she was such a practical woman, always so resourceful. Even better than ChatGPT, she could think of someone and think of them as an individual and imagine, have you ever thought about this? Or did you ever think about doing this or reading that? Or maybe studying this? Or there's a scholarship that might be good for you. And she would say to me, if you plan your courses correctly, you can do this study abroad program. And there were just so many things in my life that would have passed me by that I would have no idea about if it were not for my mother. You would be a great teacher, Peter. You love acting. And it was not just me. Maybe my mom guided some of you or your children or your grandchildren, putting students or people on a kind of trajectory. Have you thought about going in that direction? You would be good at that. Where do your gifts intersect with what's needed in society? That was really what she always was talking about. And that idea of having a plan, having an idea, be intentional with what you're doing. You can change your idea later on, but have an idea, have a direction. When you think about how many moms have created a mission statement for their family and then painted it on the family room wall. She was intense. That's who she was. She was also an activist. She hated injustice when she saw that. She would get her back up about male chauvinism, and she would tell us about how she used to write for a college newspaper, very critical of the establishment. She could be vocally critical of church piety or of the school while remaining quite pious herself. And she would hold this large sign up, marching in the streets with some of you I know in these protests. And I remember her saying to me, I do this in part for you. A love so fierce. She felt things so intensely, my mother. And she definitely did not go gently into that night. She was incapable of lying. She didn't like it when I exaggerated things. She would say, you are enough. You don't have to exaggerate. And that sense of integrity was so strong in her. What you saw is what you got. And whether that was tactful or not, it may not have always won her a lot of friends, but it did win her respect. My mom always included outsiders. Giving to refugees was so important to her. The Avon lady down the street who was at our house every month for coffee, it was not for face cream, it was for fellowship. Going to the penitentiary to meet with a prison inmate. Encouraging me, Peter, that new boy in your class, why don't you sit next to him? Why don't you spend lunchtime with him? Why don't you invite that young girl who has no friends to our house on your birthday? Welcoming others who were alone. That's where the incarnation happens, she would say to me. And that's how I will remember my mother, LuAnn. Not only in the bird songs that she would listen to through her window while she was lying in bed, or listening to Johann Sebastian Bach on Sundays, or playing Moonlight Sonata on the piano, or watching crime dramas like Vera, or paging through Flannery O'Connor. I will remember her, especially in setting a nice table with tablecloth, with planning a menu, cooking with fresh ingredients, maybe having a themed cocktail. But most profoundly, it will be about inviting the stranger, the outsider, to the table, asking those uncomfortable questions, listening, curiously seeking out the unexpected, that whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. And I want to say thank you to all of you. My mother would say, Peter, do you know how many people are praying for me? So many people are praying for me. She would be so surprised, so shocked all the time. The amount of food that you have brought, the prayers, the emails, the letters, the coming to the house, the knocking on the door, leaving presents at the door because you didn't want to disturb, coming into the house and singing Christmas carols while she was lying in bed. I will never forget those things, and I thank all of you.
Hello. My name is Edward. I also go by Eddie. Please don't ever call me Ed. And for spelling, it's Eddie with a Y, not an I-E. No thanks. Cousin Ryan, today you texted me and you used the I-E spelling. It's okay. It's totally fine. I love you, man. I love my family. My family here, my family tuning in virtually, and all the community here. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming to my mom's funeral. Who's ready to laugh? Very brave, very brave. Laughing at my mom's funeral? It's okay. It's hard, it's hard thinking about laughter, thinking of my mom. My mom didn't tell a lot of jokes. My mom wasn't super ridiculous. She didn't do ridiculous things. It's not like at my wedding, she danced so hard that she split her pants open. That, of course, was my brother Peter. My brother Peter split his pants at my wedding. But he was resourceful. He found a stapler. And found a way to close the gap. silly. But, it asks an important question. What were you even doing at my wedding to rip your pants open like that? How many times do you have to kiss the floor? My mom loved that kind of jokes, that story. You can imagine her laughing around the dinner table. And after dinner, we would share stories and laugh. My dad would tell silly dad jokes, and she would groan, but she would always laugh. And my mom had different kinds of laughter for different occasions. She had great range. There was the laugh that you didn't know she was even laughing until you looked over at her, and her whole torso was laughing, and her eyes were barely open. This silent giggle. She also had the laugh only reserved specifically for when her sisters came over. The big booming laugh, the woo, hoo, woo, woo. It hit the hardwood floor and filled up the whole house. So it was always wonderful, Sandy and Aunt Sandy and Aunt Chili, when you came over. Just filling her life with all that laughter. I always looked forward to those visits. And the laugh that I can think of with my mom when telling this story, it's a very unique laugh. I've never seen it before. It's a very pensive, quiet smile, and then relax. Smile, and then relax. And it was as if she was taking the idea or the story and turning it over and over in her head. And each time finding new delight and new beauty and new satisfaction in what was shared. Hey, Mom, remember that time at my wedding when Peter split his pants? Remember when he made it kiss the floor? And so when I think of my mom, I'll smile. Again, and again, and again. Thank you so much.
Okay, this is working. One of my friends and colleagues told me a few weeks ago, whatever you do, try to sign up first to talk. It's not working. So there's a little bit of overlap here and there, and I can take it. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy, and I'm a longtime friend and former colleague of LuAnn. As you can see on the screen, I'll be drawing our attention to the learn portion of the Westerhuis mission statement from decades ago. LuAnn was a lifelong learner. She had a thirst for knowledge and understanding that began as a young child and continued through her final weeks in hospice care. From an early age, LuAnn wanted to learn about life and what matters. While still in grade school, LuAnn would sit with her father on a Saturday afternoon, and they would discuss what his sermon the following day was about. LuAnn was inquisitive and serious about life and faith, even back then. LuAnn was curious, particularly when it came to Albert, the love of her life. What made him tick? Where would his keen mind and artistic gifts take him? She couldn't get enough of you and loved you from day one. She found Albert to be endlessly interesting and complex, among many other things. Although a deep thinker, LuAnn was not an armchair philosopher or an armchair theologian. She used that line quite often. She was insightful and curious, But LuAnn believed that thinking wasn't enough. Our beliefs and understanding of life and faith must translate into action, into the way we live out our lives. She walked the talk. An example, her political convictions took many forms of action, and we heard about some of them, and were at their core about justice and love for those on the margins, right down to the neighborhood in which she lived. So she canvassed for her local politician before an election and joined various marches and engaged with leaders, whether they were political, faith-based, or education-based. LuAnn was a force for good. Another example where LuAnn transformed her values into action was around Christian education. This led her and Albert to remortgage their home so they could pay for their boys to go to Calvin College in the States. This also was shown in LuAnn developing a robust guidance program at our school that involved not only course selection and scheduling, but also drew in the needs of the school's international program and its students, and ways of accessing financial support, bursaries and scholarships from far and wide for students bound for trade schools or colleges or universities. She spoke with thousands of students, actually, over the 22 years that she was here as a guidance counselor. And as it's written in her obituary that Albert so lovely, it was worded so lovely, she was known for asking the second question, the one underneath the safe one, and for the particular quality of her attention to anyone who sat across from her. I think some of us have been there. I've been there. This was an exceptional gift that LuAnn had. I believe it helped shape the trajectory of students' lives, perhaps many of our lives, definitely of mine. LuAnn had a God-given gift for inviting a person to face their core beliefs, their assumptions, their blind spots, their values, their longings, and their griefs. And while we may have felt vulnerable or exposed at times, her frank, even blunt truth-telling and questions were not about shaming or pointing a finger at all. They were about getting at the heart of things, the heart of life with honesty. This was so important to LuAnn, that we learn about ourselves and our place in this world in order to live with integrity, joy, and purpose. Where else did LuAnn's love for learning take her? She cooked. As a youngster, LuAnn watched Julia Child's cooking show on TV. She loved the show. This resulted in her love for cooking. Beef bourguignon comes to mind. I know Stefan has made that at Christmas. She learned how to cook in the Dutch tradition too. Hutspot, stampot, croquette, and pannenkoeken. She was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She was always keen on trying new recipes, and she even got a dinner club going for a few years. Something that lent itself to very good food, deep conversations, and many laughs. She took Dutch language lessons. LuAnn learned to speak Dutch. She took courses to that end, and this gave her more access to understanding Albert, his relatives, and the Dutch communities in which they lived over the years. Also, LuAnn wrote. She joined a writing group. She talked about this being way out of her comfort zone, but she did do it, and she wrote stories and read them to the other members of her writing group. She played the cello. LuAnn learned to play the cello in her 50s after her cancer diagnosis and after recovering from extensive surgery and chemotherapy. She practiced dutifully, that's no surprise, and was able to play well. And then LuAnn walked a lot. Her love for learning took a different turn when, during a multi-year remission from colorectal cancer, she and Albert trained for and completed an 800-kilometer pilgrimage on the Camino de Santiago. They walked this long path with their dear friends Anne and Peter Stell. This experience brought LuAnn such joy. She told me that she felt this joy every day in spite of the pain of that 40-plus day trek. What did she learn? Determination, acceptance, silence, simplicity, movement, commitment, self-reflection, and prayer. These were aspects of life that LuAnn immersed herself in on the Camino, and from which she learned so much. To end, I have a few thoughts about what I learned through my friendship with LuAnn. This is what I experienced. Being seen, being heard, being cared for in many tangible ways, being loved. I learned from LuAnn about doing the most with what you have, about grace under pressure, about taking the long view, loyalty, honesty, generosity, endurance, endurance, endurance. When to let go, and how to make space for the mystery of life, of joy, of suffering, of death, and trusting God in the middle of it all. And I think what I and all of us are spending this evening and the rest of our lives learning is what LuAnn did. It's from the end of another of Mary Oliver's poems. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes, to let it go, to let it go.
Every single verse, let alone every single line in the song that we're going to stand to sing now, is, I hope you'll sense an expression of this positive and bountiful and appreciative and joyful life of LuAnn that we've celebrated and heard about. One more small story. Albert doesn't remember this, but I guess you guys were camping one time, everyone was in bed, and LuAnn dragged you out because she had noticed the incredible star show, and she made you get out, and she recited Psalm 8 in this just delight of the world. So For the Beauty of the Earth felt like just the right thing for us to sing at this point. Please stand, and after we sing this song, please sit, and we'll go right into receiving some pictures of LuAnn's life.
Thank
please join your hearts to this prayer that LuAnn found and prayed over her family last summer already, and that we can receive for our unique moment. And we will move directly into the beautiful song, Jesus Draw Me Ever Nearer, a song that was important to LuAnn from the beginning of her illness, received it as part of the worship experience here at Fleetwood, and may also be a way for each of us as we move towards leaving from this place and moving into a new reality without this friend and mom and wife and sister close by. May it be an expression as well of how we can also be a version of a fierce Pierce. Let's pray. Lord, in this time of feeling so deeply that we are mortal, may we take comfort in these bright thoughts. That to be alive is to trust we have enough hours for our hearts to warm to love, for our pride to crumble under the beautiful weight of mercy, for our minds to be convinced that we are your beloveds, and for our hopes to grow firmly anchored in the promise of a new creation. In light of these future glories, Great Shepherd, let us lean on you for all of our remaining days. Teach us, Lord, to number our days that we may gain a heart of joy and wisdom. May all grief, including grief over LuAnn's absence, carry in it beautiful seeds of eternal hope that will bloom into 1,000 visible expressions of your love in the world. Let there be no sadness that leads to despair, but may we love each other well leaving this place, tending each other's griefs, even as each feels it uniquely. Lord, be gentle with us all. Be merciful. Be sufficient. Shepherd us into firmer hopes, greater glories, and fuller joys. Amen.
Yeah, this is the end of the service about LuAnn, and we think a lot about that, and we still somehow are grieving. At least I am, and my family does, and probably you're grieving as well in your own way. And I don't need to pretend otherwise. But I also know what LuAnn would say, because she never would let me stop here. She had a saying, when things don't go the way she hoped for herself or for her family or for people she loved, she wouldn't stay stuck in the loss. She would say quietly but firmly, if your dreams don't come through, learn to dream a new dream. Go forwards. And she didn't mean you can't grieve, not at all, what you have lost. She meant carry it with you, and keep going on your back. And we saw, hopefully, in what we saw tonight, that she did that in many ways, more than once. And to be honest, I'm still figuring out, how do you do that? For me, but she could show it. And I think if I look back on my life with her, because how do you keep going when the person you love is no longer beside you? For LuAnn, it didn't start with trying harder. It started always with trust, with believing there is, always something underneath, under the grief, under the confusion, even under the silence that comes after the loss, something steady, something that holds you. A long time ago, a woman named Julian of Norwich, 800 years ago, went through deep suffering, and in the middle of it, she heard these voices, and it says, all shall be well. All shall be well in all manner of thing that shall be well. And those words became very meaningful for me through my life. And they say something what LuAnn really deeply believed as well. Not as a neat answer, to the problems of life. Not as a way of explaining everything, but as something solid, to stand on when nothing else feels certain. Because if there is something holding you, if you know that, even if you can't see it, you don't stay stuck. You begin to move, slowly maybe, but one step at a time. And that's why I wanted to put this song. She organized the songs of the service, as Wilma said, but I got a say in it too, so I got this last, the last song, and it is really a song and that follows the same path. And I know in a room, in a sanctuary like this, we are all from different backgrounds and different feelings. And, some of us are great believers, and some of us are struggling tremendously, and some don't know what to believe, and some feel they don't believe at all. And that's normal. But among all the differences we have in terms of faith, there is something we all share. We all long for something. We all want that life matters. We all want to love that lasts. We don't want anybody to lose in our lives. We all yearn, you could say. And even someone who says, I don't believe, still hopes for something. Still wants meaning, still wants connection. And that's where we all met in this past hour, I hope. That's our common ground. And there's where the song begins, which is printed in your bulletin. Not with answers, but with honesty. Because sometimes, as the word says, when you look at this world, it's hard to hear that living word. We know that, especially today, it's hard to hear. And then it says, but it gently lends its voice to all your yearnings. Not to what we are sure about, but to what we long for. And that's the key idea. Faith doesn't start with certainty. It starts with our longing. because longing is real. And it's where we are honest, it's where we are human. And then the song says something else and slowly draws away when you are not looking. And that's true too, because faith is not always strong. Some days you feel close, and other days it feels all far away. And LuAnn knew that too. She was not a perfect person always either. And she knows her struggles and her doubts. She didn't pretend faith was always steady. Absolutely not. But she also didn't give up when it felt distant. She kept reaching. Not because she was sure, but because reaching kept her open. It kept her connected to people, to life, to God. And she chose hope. Hope which helped her stay open even when she didn't understand. And underneath that was that simple trust that she believed that somehow in this world the Spirit of God is moving, whether you believe it or not. And God is still at work for her, even when we don't feel it. Like us, for today we are grieving, or when the song says, now it may be buried at the center of the earth. And that feels like when you look at the ashes, the box, heavy, hidden. Will it rise again? Or stay steep down? And that's the question we carry. And the answer is simple. And the song said, we will find out when I walk around in this town. Interesting. You don't figure it out first in your head. You live your way out. You live your way out. And I think I'm beginning to see what that looks like for me. As you're with it now, then you have to look for tomorrow, maybe. And then when I make my coffee, not because everything is okay, but I should say that there's a new day again. And there's sunshine, and creation is blooming again. I could see the presence of God in the Spirit when so many people said, share with me their pain and give me a hug, or brought food to the house, or say, I pray for you, a hand on my shoulder, or a child asking, Opa, where is heaven? And instead of brushing it off, you sit down and you think about it. And say, I don't know always either. It looks where you open a stranger, the door, as LuAnn always tried to present that in life. And in that openness, I realized that maybe something is going on, and that's faith. In a quiet way, that's how LuAnn lived. To stay open, kept wondering, kept caring for the mysteries of life, and always curious about others. Not only respectful, but trying to find out more about people. And I think that's simply I wanted to share that with you. And I don't want to make the service too long and start preaching again, but you get the idea. And I hope that the testimony of LuAnn will leave us an encouragement when we go all home. So, when after the blessing, we will sing this song, All Will Be Well, All Will Be Well.
We won't sing it, we will receive it and just listen. Yeah. Somehow the resurrection. Following this blessing, please be seated again to receive that song. And at the end of the song, the family will leave first, and then you are all so welcome to mingle and meet and have some good food in the appropriately named fellowship hall. So would you please rise to receive this blessing? In the name of the living Christ, who is spaciousness and love at the widest and deepest places, who was incarnate in time in Jesus, available and present in LuAnn in her unique and irreplaceable life, and is available and present in each of your unique and irreplaceable lives. Go in peace. The grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Amen. Be seated.
All things will be made well, all will be made well. All things will be made well, all will be made well. If you savor everything you've ever known, then somehow I think it won't be very long until you hear an answer to your prayer. Oh, but not the answer you were hoping there. All things will be made well, all will be made well. All things will be made well, all will be made well. Sometimes when I look out at the world, it's hard to hear that living word. It gently lends its voice to all your yearnings, and it slowly draws away when you're not looking. All things will be made well, all will be made well. All things will be made well, all will be made well. The Spirit blows along, that's what I've heard. Now it's buried in the center of the earth. And will it rise again or stay deep down? Well, I guess that I'll find out when I walk around this town. All things will be made well, all will be made well. All things will be made well, all will be made well. All things will be made well, all will be made well. All things will be made